So today we've got a Kubota U10 little micro digger, and I'm going to talk you through some of the things I like about this machine and some of the things that I think they could improve on, or other manufacturers have maybe beaten them a bit. The Kubota U10 there's two ranges, or two models of excavator in Kubota's range, micro diggers that is. There's the KX008, which is looks almost identical, but actually is a slightly smaller version, goes that little bit narrower and isn't zero tail swing. And then there's the U10, which is their kind of I guess more powerful, better spec'd, longer arm, twin speed tracking micro digger. This is a real little weapon, and they get a lot of stick, I think, from operators for being pretty terrible to drive, but the reality is, lads, it's better than a shovel, and when you really need to use one of these, there's nothing better than a little micro digger to save your back with a bit of shoveling. So there's some compromises, no doubt, on these things, but I don't actually think Kubota are far off the mark with this particular one. Let me talk you through some of the specs. So there isn't a huge amount to talk about with these things, because essentially they are a micro digger and the features are pretty minimal, really. It digs, there is obviously no cab, but pretty much every manufacturer makes one of these. Some of them do it better than others. The Kubota, this particular version, has been out a long time now. It's a -3, probably due an update. They did try putting servos on them to compete with the Bobcat, but there's a very odd setup for how those servos work, and I think it's quite an expensive option. So I've never actually seen one other than at a plant show before, and certainly never operated one. Bobcat, when they released their E10, have really run away with the micro market, and quite rightly so. Although a few people I know who own one and have put 1,000 or more hours on them now are starting to get problems with hoses going and things that you maybe wouldn't expect. Another person had a problem with a diesel injector pump, I think, was running lumpy, and it took them a while to sort that out. But it's certainly a really well designed machine, and they've kicked the arse, I think, up a lot of the manufacturers. Having said that, Kubota designed this thing, well, I remember driving these back in the mid-2000s, and they haven't changed a huge amount. They were right then, they were good then, and they're not far off now. So essentially, the U10's got a slightly longer boom. This bit's a bit longer than the 008. I think the dipper length's the same, but it gives it that little bit higher for loading dumpers, a little bit further reach as well, which has got a decent reach on it actually when it's extended out. Obviously the quick hitch does help, but we'll get to the quick hitch in a minute. Really basic. This is obviously to turn the levers on. Personally, I find it gets in the way of my legs, because you want to kind of have your legs spread out a bit when you're operating these. The worst thing actually about this whole machine, in my opinion, is the throttle lever, which hits your knee literally when you're sat there, because this is down, you can't bring it past there, and it's just, when it's on full throttle, you just hit your knee on it. If I owned it, I think that'd be getting cut off down there somewhere and reapplying the knob, and these probably would be cut short as well for the same sort of reason. But other than that, it's not actually ergonomically a bad thing to drive for a micro digger. Caveat there. Getting on and off of it isn't too bad. There's actually a decent sort of width between the tunnel. You do end up scraping your foot on here, which obviously does damage the paint over time, but this is all compromise stuff, guys. This is not perfection. This is something that goes in tight spaces and gets you out of a problem. It is zero tail swing, and all of this is all metal, real chunky solid casting, and that protects the radiator, which has got a decent vent, the exhaust around the other side. That's a real big feature of this machine, and one reason I really like it actually is it's if you're using one of these, the chances are you're in a tight, horrible site, and not having to worry about the counterweight is just one less thing on your mind, really. The seat actually tilts forward as well. That's the overnight parked position. or when it's raining, obviously that's like the cab, you know, closing the cab door for some people, or the windscreen. I know some of you operators obviously never open the door anyway, or the windscreen. You like to keep yourself in your own little bubble, but there are some features for you on this. I mean, the cab floor here, for example, is self-cleaning. Every time it rains, cleans the floor. I mean, what more can you want from this machine, really? You boys spending all that time wasting time cleaning, does it yourself when it rains, doesn't it? This model actually comes with air conditioning as standard. Only thing is it works in the winter, and the heater only works in the summer. So that is the only thing with it, but it's here. I mean, today the aircon's been bloody brilliant. It's about 1 degree, bit of a wind. I mean, the fan speed's on about 2. It's great, you know, real good. The roll cage on this sits on the front, back to its serious business. Now, personally, it gives you an "Oh Jesus" handle to grab onto, which I quite like, but it's not great for visibility. So the Bobcat one, where it's at the back and comes over the top of you, I think is a really good idea. But you know, certainly not bad. It folds forward for getting in low spaces, and this is one thing I don't like. It hits the ram, so you end up with this mark on the ram because you have to have the sort of bucket up at a certain height to obviously move about, and the roll cage fails the ram. So I think that's a real shame as a design feature. You could, if you owned it, I guess, take it off every time, but that's not the point, is it? It's meant to be folded forward, so that's a bit of a shame. Although having said that, the cage is shaped nicely for a bit of a roof if you did go for that kind of mod. So you know, you could come up with some kind of bit of tarpaulin up there and rig yourself a little bit out of the rain. The offset is quite good on this machine. It works on this pedal here, very simple. Good offset actually both ways. Yeah, it's which is what you want, because you're always in a tight, horrible space. They've got pin end greasing on all the pins, which I think is a good feature. I've said that before. Hoses are all nicely inside the boom. Again, this is all about, you know, protection. You're in a tight area, you just don't want to be worrying about ripping something off. Boom on the top of the boom cylinder on top of the boom, which is now relatively standard actually across these smaller machines and even 1.5 tonners. Yes, you lose a bit of lift power, but you're not going to be lifting with this, are you really? It's yeah, again, it's a powered shovel. Hydraulics, it can have a twin acting aux on it. It's enough to power a breaker. I don't think you'd run a flail on this little thing anyway. It certainly powers a breaker. The Scandinavians actually put cute little tilt hitches on them, which I think steel wrists do. They tilt to about 30 degrees or something. Real nice little low compact things. That is quite a sexy mod, and I have to say, if I probably owned one, the kind of work I do, I would run that kind of mod. They extend the hoses though down to the dipper, and then obviously having a much shorter hose, so that can all be done. But for a hire machine, yeah, the less that's on it that can be ripped off, the better. The digging geometry on this, and that's the key with these, and I think where the Bobcat lets itself down a bit, is its ability to curl right round to load a dumper, because obviously it's not a very big machine. There is a track barrow often paired with, sometimes a 1-ton dumper you'd pair one of these with, and they're quite high, and to get the bucket in with the load in, it is quite difficult, I find, on the Bobcat. It kind of lacks that rotation. The Kubota digging end, I think their geometry is spot on. The only criticism I have is it's got great rotation, as in when you're retention of the bucket, but it's not brilliant as it is now, for example, getting that back of that bucket flat, and I guess that's always a compromise. I remember driving one without a quick hitch before, and I think it's better when it's got a direct mounted bucket on it. I think the quick hitch probably doesn't help in that regard, because it adds build height and messes the geometry up a bit. Just onto this quick hitch for a bit. This is a White's quick hitch. Now, I've come across these on many different machines before. I think they spec them as standard on these Kubotas. I just don't buy one, guys. It's the best thing I can tell you is do not get a White's quick hitch. I don't know what metal they're made out of, some kind of cheese, but this thing hasn't done a lot of work. and it's got a horrendous play on it for a micro digger, and the bucket's only 900 wide, the grader. This bucket don't fit, the others do, so you have to wiggle this one around. It's a great design. I like the retained pin, and you know, it's a spring quick hitch. I get that works really well, but I don't know what they make them out of. It's just, I've run them on 3-tonners, I've run them on 5-tonners, they're all crap. And I'd rather a direct mount, to be honest, than a bloody white quick hitch. It's just not, I don't know, they just haven't quite got it. There's better quick hitches out there on the market, and yeah, just find something else, because I haven't come across one yet that's been where I thought, oh okay, you know, it's a one-off. For me, not for me. It does the job in this instance, apart from when you want to change that bucket. For all the others it works. The tracks obviously retract. They've got a ram on the inside, and this is the key thing with these really. You want to make sure that stays clean, because they can get gummed up with mud and crap, and then when you retract the ram, it scratches the ram or doesn't retract properly. This one lost its blade extenders a long time ago, which is a shame, but there's better systems out there as well. I don't think the Bobcat system's that great. They have a blade extension that slides over the existing blade. That's not great for me either. These ones swing out, or they don't swing out, you take them off, re-put them on. And the good thing with that is it uses the same hole, so the hole gets obviously filled with crap like this, but when you've got the pin in it, you pull it out, swing the blade round and put it in. It's using the same hole, so at least the hole's clear when you pull the pin out, right? So it's going to be clean again when you put it back in. That's the theory anyway. The engine is under here. Monster 3-cylinder, nice little Kubota engine. I think it's Kubota. They make diesel engines, little diesel engines. This is their speciality. They just work. I mean, these things have been around forever. This engine's used in all kinds of things, lighting towers and generators and all sorts of stuff, compressors. It's a great little engine. It's pretty tight in there to work on. You have got oil dipstick here. You can see the starter motor. You've got an oil filter. You know, it's not bad. Fuel filter. It's not impossible to get into, and for a little machine, I think they've done pretty well there, really. The key as well, I mention this because Yanmar are retarded with where their key is. Key's down here. Now that works because you can feel for it and use it in use, no problem. The Yanmar one is up here, and when you get off the machine, you flick the key with your foot and turn the digger off. Really irritating. Anyway, Kubota, nice one. You actually put the key in the right place. Little lever down here switches the blade lever, which is quite nicely positioned actually, up there, and doesn't hit your knee, strangely. Why they couldn't have done that with the throttle cable. That switches your tracks to expand or retract, and then you put it down like that, and it goes back to blade again. Good little system. Your diesel's down here. I don't know how much it takes, less than a jerry can. I've never run out of fuel. I don't know how long you have to run one for. I think you'd kill your back driving it long enough to run the thing out of fuel. Honestly, they probably take about 10 litres and that lasts about 10 years. It's so efficient on fuel, this thing. Yeah, brilliant little digger. I think I've had a jerry can here for a week, used it every day, not finished the jerry can yet. So yeah, think of that as you will. Not really much more to say. As I say, it's got the twin speed tracking is on this little pedal here, which is a cute little addition. A lot of people don't know about that. You sort of swing your foot over here, and this one operates the at the moment single acting hydraulics, but I've definitely seen them with dual acting, so it's possible. They don't have servos, as I said earlier. It's a shame, but this is probably one of the last sort of designs really that doesn't. They made a pod that bolts on here and comes round, and it just doesn't work for me. And apparently it's quite an expensive option as well. The servos, the levers as they are okay, and it's got quite a nice feel for a micro digger. It's a bit slow to start up, so when you put the lever down, the hydraulics don't really react very well. But you know, once it's going, it's it drives all right for a micro digger. You know, it's this, we're not talking the smoothest of hydraulics again on this sort of size machine. The only thing I'd say with these really is security, which is just awful. They get nicked all the time. Going into vans, you can fit it in a van, obviously, take the roll cage off, it fits in a van. You pretty much lift them up. They just get stolen, and Kubota haven't really done much to help us as owners for these. So if you do buy one, or you already own one, you'll know you just do whatever you can to make the thing secure, because the key is like the 50p on eBay job, and they just go missing all the time. Probably one of the most common machines. So yeah, that's the U10 really. Would I buy one? Well, I do. The Bobcat / Doosan machine is probably right up there at the top of the micro end really. A couple of horror stories on back up from people, but I really think again that depends a lot on your dealer, doesn't it? Kubota, I would consider one of these even now in this guise against the Bobcat. It's going to be reliable as hell, great residual value. I mean, they still sell for really good money, you know, even 15 years old now. The design of them is certainly workable enough, and it's got good digging power. I think it grades well enough for one of these little things. And yeah, it'd be my probably top two. I'd have thought about a Kubota, because I think they make 2 or 3 different micros. One of them's got servos and is quite tasty, but I've not got a dealer around this way, so that would probably put me off Kubota for me. But yeah, local Kubota dealer, local Bobcat dealer, it'd be between those two. You just got to weigh up what the price is and what you can get on the day. But I certainly wouldn't write one of these off just because it doesn't have servos, because you're in a tight spot. This thing's got little features that you want to get you out of trouble, and built by the people who know micro machines better than anyone else really. So yeah, that's the Kubota. Catch you in the next video.